Hello, everyone. Welcome to another week of Sunday School. And this week is a very special week because this week we here in Canada celebrate Remembrance Day on November 11th, and that's this Wednesday. And so it makes perfect sense that this week we're going to focus on soldiers in the Bible. The Bible is full of all kinds of stories about soldiers. From Samson, who we learned about that last week, he was practically a one-man army. And then Joshua, the conqueror. He led Israel's armies against Jericho and many other different battles and was a great warrior. In fact, Israel's most famous king, David, before he became king, was known as a great soldier and a man who stood out on the battlefield. When you get to the New Testament, you still see soldiers, including the Roman centurion who came to Jesus when his daughter was sick, and Jesus praised his faith. Soldiers really are a key job in the Bible. But today we're going to learn about a different story. Today we're going to learn about the story of a man who was ordinary, who was plain. In fact, you might even say that he was not really fit to be a soldier. But God chose him to be one of the greatest soldiers in Israel's history. Let's hear the story of Gideon. The story of Gideon comes to us from the book of Judges, chapters 6 and 7. When Gideon was alive, the Israelites were being plagued by a group called the Midianites, who were oppressing the people of Israel. They were so many in number and so powerful that it's said that the Israelites actually had to hide in caves. And when we first meet Gideon, he's actually threshing wheat, so he's trying to make food for himself in a wine press. He's trying to hide from the Midianites so they don't steal what little food he has. And who should come before Gideon but an angel from God? This angel said, "Hail to you, mighty warrior." Now imagine hearing that as you're sitting there hiding from your enemies. And that was Gideon's thought as well. He said, "Who, me?" And the angel said, "Yes, God wants you to do great things." At first, Gideon didn't believe him. He said, "Well, I'm nobody. I'm not important." But the angel of God gave him signs to prove that God was on his side. And so Gideon got more and more courageous. And even God himself gave Gideon several signs proving that he wanted him to be the leader of his people. Now Gideon knew that the Midianites had a mighty army. It is said that their camels were more numerous than the sand on the seashore. And so Gideon decided to raise a great army to fight them. However, when God saw how many people there were, he said, "No, Gideon, that is too many. I want my people to know that it is me who defeated the Israelites. So they won't be able to say, well, we did this through our own strength. So I want you to talk to the people." And there were 32,000 people gathered in the army. And he said, "I want you to say that anyone who is scared at all of this battle to go home." Gideon told this to the men, and 22,000 of them went home, leaving only 10,000 ready to fight the Midianites. However, as they approached the Midianite camp, God again told Gideon, "This is still too many. And so take them to the brook, and there'll be another test. Any man who gets down and laps the water like a dog, I want you to send home. But those who scoop up the water in their hands and drink from it like a cup, those are the ones I want to use for your great victory." Well, could you imagine Gideon's surprise when only 300 men cupped the water in their hands? With 300 men, he was supposed to beat this mighty army. But God had a plan. God told Gideon, if you're scared, go down to the Midianite camp and listen to what they have to say. So Gideon that night snuck down and he listened, and he heard Midianite guards talking about a dream they had had and how that meant that Gideon was coming and that they were afraid. Gideon went back to his 300 men, and he was just filled with courage from what he had heard. He gave the men clay pots, torches, and trumpets. And he said, "I want you to do exactly what I do. Listen for my signal." And he sent his men, he divided into 3 groups, and they surrounded the Midianite camp. Then Gideon broke his clay pot, and all his men did the same. They lit their torches and they blew their trumpets. And then they shouted, for the Lord and for Gideon." Now when the Midianites saw this, they saw all the torches around their camp. They thought the army was much, much greater than what it actually was. And in all the confusion, many of them actually ended up killing each other. And the Lord accomplished a great victory that day through Gideon. Gideon, the man who started off hiding in a wine press, had become one of the greatest heroes in Israeli history.
For this week's song, it makes perfect sense to do "I'm in the Lord's Army." So everyone get ready, stand attention. Here we go. I may never march in the infantry, ride in the cavalry, shoot the artillery. I may never zoom o'er the enemy, but I'm in the Lord's army. Yes, sir. I'm in the Lord's army. Yes, sir. I'm in the Lord's army. Yes, sir. I may never march in the infantry, ride in the cavalry, shoot the artillery. I may never zoom o'er the enemy, but I'm in the Lord's army. Yes, sir! Great job, everyone!
Now you've heard the story of Gideon. You've heard the story of a man who, by himself didn't really stand out. But through God's strength, he was able to accomplish great things. And so, for today's verse, I want you to memorize Philippians 4:13. And Philippians 4:13 goes like this: "For I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." It's a great reminder of where we get our strength as Christians. If we believe in God, we can always go to him when we need him, and he will give us strength. To help you remember that verse, here's a little song. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
For your craft this week, please make your own trumpet like the ones that are used by Gideon in his attack on the Midianites. All you gotta do is cut out the pattern, fold it around, make sure you glue it, and color it however you want. Enjoy! I look forward to hearing your resounding trumpets.
So that's our video for this week. Thanks so much for watching. I really encourage you on Wednesday to go out to the cenotaph or to take a moment to remember the veterans and the sacrifice that people made fighting for our freedom overseas in different wars. Also, just remember that as Christians, whenever we have needs or whenever we're facing what seems to be an unconquerable obstacle, just remember we can go to God for our strength. Have a wonderful week, everyone.